I'm going to go ahead and turn this. Hey guys, I'm Mike Cass. I'm the president of Epic Games. Really glad to be here in Leipzig. Thanks again to Frank and the entire crew here at the convention for supporting my exotic beer method. Thanks a lot. So I'm going to talk today about the making of Gears of War 2. I can only talk so much about it because it's not done yet. Of course, it's kind of ballsy to get up here and say, here's the lessons we learned in making this game, but we're pretty close to finish with it. It will be out in November 7th. We learned a lot of lessons making this game, and I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Gears franchise, the things we did to develop that franchise, and then the tricks we took in approaching a sequel, because we haven't done a true sequel like this before, a story-based sequel, I think, ever at Epic. We've certainly done sequels of multiplayer shooters, but never a story-based sequel before. So I'll start out with how we made the franchise, get into the tough parts about making a sequel, and then jump into our new, better, more analysis, which is our really bad name for the process we went through to come up with a sequel. And then, if everything works, we'll have a sexy demo after that. No promises. So we've been around for about 16 years now. I think actually 17. So we were founded in Tim Sweeney's basement. He's our crazy technology guy, brilliant guy. Our very first game was ZZT, and it came with a level editor. So we've been doing it ever since. Obviously, we did the Unreal franchise, Jill of the Jungle, Epic Pinball. That's sort of what paid to make the Unreal games, the Unreal Tournament. There's 105 of us now. We've actually got a few subsidiaries as well. We've got a team in China that focuses on outsourcing, a team out in Utah we just acquired that does live arcade type games, and then a team in Warsaw, People Can Fly, just announced 3 days ago that we've got a relationship with EA for their next title. It is freaking hot in here, is it not? Is that just me? Is it really warm up here because of all the camera lights or something? So I'm wandering around Munich, and it's so hot. My fiance are like sweating. We're thinking, this is Germany, it's not supposed to be so hot. And we see this place like perfect air conditioning, because it says Konditorei. No, it's full of candy. Well, that was cool too, so we ate bacon. It was still really warm. All right, okay. All right, so Gears we made in 2006, and it won a ton of Game of the Year awards. It was just the most awesome experience ever. Not only did it win lots of awards, but we also sold a bunch of them, and that's like every developer's dream. And the next one's coming out in November, but you know what it means when you make, wow, my animation totally screwed up. What you have to do when you sell lots of copies of a game and it wins lots of awards is you have to make a sequel. We had no choice. There's some law in game development that says this. So the way we made the franchise, let me kind of skip along. Gears of War, I was saying, was a pretty big success. Tons of players on live, like 400,000 simultaneous players. It's not peak usage, just like what we're getting every day. We had 1 million downloads of our first map pack. It's really interesting that we sold the map pack at first, but told everyone we were going to give it away for free in 3 months. And they sold like hotcakes, which is a really weird thing. Like, I could wait. I could sit it out for a couple months. And then we announced, okay, 1 week, and it's going free, and a whole bunch of people bought it. Which is the neatest thing ever, right? So you get all the credit for giving it away to your fans, and you also make money at the same time. I suggest everyone do it. But anyway, so making a franchise like Gears is way harder than just focusing on making a good gameplay experience. There's a couple pieces that you need to have an intellectual property that's robust enough to support a long-term franchise. I think that we've established a strong brand for Gears, but we fell into it as much as we tried on purpose. And so I want to talk about some of the lessons first with the franchise. You need a property that's compelling, of course. People want to learn more about it, to know more about the depth of the story. We start Gears in prison. The main character's there. You don't know why. You don't know how long he's been there, and you're handed a gun and you go fight. And people who are really into the franchise want to know why. They want to read the book and the comic book and see the movie that's coming out soon to talk about all these different things and learn more about your franchise. You also, of course, have to support the franchise and have, most important to us, is anchors that make the franchise easy for you to access. That's stuff you can relate to, and I'll talk for a bit about how we did that. But basically, we had this mantra in Gears: is no lasers. We want to make it as easy to reach as possible. We don't have aliens. We have monsters, but we try to keep it as easy as possible for you to get in without breaking suspension of disbelief. We manage players' expectations pretty closely. We talk about the difference, like if we give you a Jeep and it does some cool stuff, like Halo is a great example, right? They give you a Jeep, you know what a Jeep does, because you run around the Warthog and it's really, really fun. But if we give you a crazy spaceship, then you don't have a level of expectations. And it's really hard to exceed a player's expectations when they don't know where it's coming from in the first place. So one of our big franchise points was an Earth-like setting. It's maybe a little hard to see on the monitors, but this is just a prison. You start out in a prison, a cell block, and even though it's got this destroyed beauty look to it, it's really just sort of a medieval setting. You know, we did lots of research in Europe, drank beer, and took lots of pictures. And said, all right, this is what old buildings look like. You know, because where I come from, an old building is like 30 years old, and it's the first McDonald's in the city. This is actually cool and all. Okay, so we start with this setting that you can kind of get. It's really pretty, you understand it, but somebody knocked it over. All right, second, monsters under the bed. Way easier than space aliens coming down from the sky, right? Because that's something that hasn't happened, but every kid grows up afraid of monsters under the bed. The old story of Gears, if you're not aware of it, is they're scary monsters who burrow their way up from underground. You don't know why they're there, you don't know why they're attacking you, but Earth is at its last stand. Then, of course, you got to have that anti-hero, Marcus Phoenix. He doesn't want to do it. His first line in the game is, right? So that's the start into the exciting, compelling world of Gears of War. So I mentioned keeping things suspension of disbelief, you know, keeping it manageable. This is our sort of our lightsaber for Gears of War. It's called the Lancer Assault Rifle. You can buy these right now for $200 on Amazon in the U.S. Working on UK. They're really cool. But anyway, it's a gun, and it's got a chainsaw on the end of it. The chainsaw's not real, unfortunately, on Amazon. And so this is something that's okay. So it's a little bit of a stretch of your imagination, but it's just a machine gun. It doesn't shoot weird tritium bullets or anything. It just shoots bullets. It has a big bayonet on the end, and it's kind of cool. Our bow, this is, if anybody ever saw the Dukes of Hazzard, very much inspired by that. It's this cool bow, you open it up and it shoots explosive bullets. It's just a bow, it's not some crazy rocket launcher shooting ion cannon charges. And then our grenades, even though they're kind of wacky with this bolo feel to them, when you see them, you know exactly what to do. Your character's doing this, and there's an arc aiming in front of you, and you know what's going on. You don't have to say, what the hell is that blue glowing thing in his hand? I don't get it. Oh, it's just a grenade. Okay. So once you've got these elements, then the next step is to establish a brand based on these elements. We came up with our themes for our franchise. It's humanity's last stand, and our badass anti-hero and all that. And then we worked on coming up with iconography for our brand that our player base could identify with. And we wanted to shoot for something that was really cool, so even if you don't like Gears, you might still like the icon and buy the t-shirt, right? You know, like the Misfits that nobody actually listens to, but everybody has a t-shirt for it. It's kind of like that. And then we created a visual identity that defines the brand. We take that brand and we manage it as consistently as possible. We never let someone take our Crimson Omen and cut it in half and slap it on a t-shirt. We wanted to have that consistency. So our themes, I mentioned the destroyed beauty of the Earth. The next one is humanity's last stand. This is, we're all up against it. We're up against the gun. We're not going to survive unless we put our full effort into this. There's this notion of a nightmarish horror coming from under the ground, a monster from beneath the bed. It's not a horror game, the Gears franchise, but there is sort of that element of they're afraid of what's next. You never fight alone in Gears, and the whole game was designed around cooperative play from the beginning, with the story developed around two main characters and some sub-characters. So you never have that feeling of, I'm the second guy standing there while there's a cool cinematic about the main character. You're not left out of the storyline. And then, of course, Marcus is our hero. So when we went through the process of creating an icon, hopefully you know what this is right away. It's Splinter Cell. It's a really good icon for the game. It's recognizable. We wanted something like that just pops. And what we came up with was we called it Crimson Omen. In the fiction, this is spray painted in an area where someone has died, has been killed by the locust. But mostly this is our Misfits logo, which is this really cool badass thing that slaps on. Okay, so the gear represents the Coalition of Ordered Governments, which is, the acronym is COG, and you kind of get the idea, but basically it's just a really cool gear with a skull in it. And this is just a smattering of people who've really taken to this icon. And we certainly find, like, we sell the cool shoes with the Gears icon because it's just a badass skull. We sold a lot of faceplates for people who didn't play Gears because it was a cooler faceplate than the one with some sci-fi stuff or whatever. That's not why we did it, but it's kind of neat that it's something that's a little more approachable. Then the next step was to establish a visual identity for Gears that kind of defines all of our themes at once. This is a really, really great visual identity. We didn't actually create this visual identity, you might recognize it. But so you look at the 50s font, you know what time setting this is. You look at the sepia tones and you know, okay, it's got this dusty leather portfolio, matte feeling to it. You see the action, the truck careening off in the distance. Here's our badass anti-hero. And then people spelunking. You kind of know what this game is about just by looking at all the pieces. And we wanted to achieve that same thing. Of course, we're not quite that good, but we wanted this notion of our badass anti-hero, not fighting alone, we put some guys in the background, destroyed beauty behind it, and then this feeling of the wings of fire is our phoenix. And this is Marcus Phoenix, our character, rising up and fighting against the evil horde in humanity's last stand.